Daddy, I told her mom's secret last night. Ethan Brooks froze halfway down the wooden stairs, one hand still resting on the railing polished smooth by years of use. The voice belonged to his daughter, Lily, soft and sleepy, carrying something he had not heard in a very long time. Warmth. Morning light slipped through the kitchen windows of the cabin, painting gold across the worn pine floor. The smell of coffee drifted upward. Cinnamon, too. And laughter. Quiet laughter. He reached the last step and stopped breathing for a second. A woman stood at his stove wearing his old red flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to her elbows, her blonde hair loosely tied back as steam rose from a skillet. Lily sat at the table beside her, head resting gently against the woman's arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ethan stared. The shirt was his favorite one, the one he had not worn since last winter, the one folded in the laundry basket after the storm last night. The woman turned slowly. Gray eyes met his. Calm, tired, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or money. She gave a small smile that looked almost apologetic. Good morning, she said quietly. Ethan blinked once. You're awake. He glanced at Lily, then back at the stranger he had carried through snow 12 hours earlier after finding her beside a disabled SUV on County Road 16 with freezing rain soaking through her coat. He had offered shelter because that was who he was. No questions, no expectations, just dignity, just grace. But this was something else. Lily looked up. Her cheeks held color again. Actual color. Ethan had spent 2 years praying for that after cancer took his wife and silence moved into their home like winter that refused to leave. Daddy, Lily whispered, fingers curled around a chipped mug of cocoa. She made pancakes shaped like stars. Ethan swallowed. The kitchen suddenly felt too small for his heartbeat. The woman lowered her eyes. I'm sorry about the shirt, she said softly. Mine got soaked and your daughter insisted I take it. Lily immediately sat up straighter. I did. Ethan almost smiled. Almost. Outside, fresh snow rested over the fence posts and the old pickup in the driveway. The world looked still, quiet, like it was holding its breath. He stepped forward slowly. I never asked your name. She hesitated. 1 second. 2. Something flickered behind her eyes. Not fear. Not exactly. More like someone deciding how much truth they could afford. Then she looked at Lily again. The little girl had fallen asleep against her shoulder without even realizing it. The woman brushed a strand of hair from Lily's forehead with impossible gentleness. Her voice dropped lower. Softer. My name is Claire. She paused. And last night, her fingers tightened around the coffee mug. Last night your daughter told me something she thought nobody else remembered. Ethan's chest tightened. The room went still. Even the coffee maker stopped humming. Claire lifted her eyes to his. She told me her mother used to say that if Lily ever smiled like this again. Her voice almost broke. You weren't supposed to be afraid of loving someone new. The words settled over Ethan like snow falling onto old tracks. He did not move. He simply stood there with one hand resting against the back of a kitchen chair while the fire in the cast iron stove crackled softly behind him. Lily had gone quiet again, her eyes moving between them as though she sensed something larger than pancakes, and morning light was happening inside the room. Ethan finally looked away first. He reached for the coffee pot and poured himself a cup. The scent rose warm and familiar, grounding him. Lily, he said gently, why do not you finish breakfast and feed Daisy after? Lily nodded. Okay, Daddy. She slid from her chair, wrapped her small sweater tighter, and headed toward the mudroom where their old golden retriever waited every morning beside the back door. The moment she disappeared, silence settled in. Claire lowered her eyes to the stove. I am sorry, she whispered. I should not have said it like that. Ethan stared into his coffee. No, his voice was quiet. You just said something I have not heard in 2 years. Outside, wind moved through the pines behind the cabin. Snow slipped from branches in soft white clouds. The world beyond the windows looked endless, peaceful, the kind of morning his wife used to love. Claire folded her hands. Last night, she could not sleep. Ethan looked up. Claire continued softly. The storm scared her at first. I stayed in the hallway because I did not want her waking up alone. Her eyes drifted toward Lily's empty chair. She asked if mothers still watch from heaven when children forget how to smile. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Claire continued before he could answer. Then she showed me a drawing. Ethan frowned slightly. A drawing? Claire nodded. A house. 3 people holding hands. She swallowed. One of them had no face. The kitchen became painfully still. Ethan knew that picture. He had found versions of it in Lily's room for months. Always 3 figures. Always one unfinished. He sat down slowly. She never showed me that one. Claire gave a small smile filled with sadness. Maybe she was waiting. Ethan studied her now, really studied her. She did not look like someone who belonged in a cabin 30 miles from town. Her hands were careful. Her posture carried quiet discipline. Even in his old flannel shirt, there was something composed about her, like a person used to boardrooms instead of wood stoves. Yet this morning she looked tired. Human. Almost fragile. You said your name is Claire, he said. Where were you going last night? Her fingers paused around the coffee mug. 1 second. 2. She looked toward the window where fresh snow covered his old Ford pickup. Away, she answered softly. Ethan waited. She gave a faint smile that never reached her eyes. Sometimes people with everything still need somewhere to breathe. Before Ethan could reply, Lily burst back into the room with snow on her boots and excitement on her face. Daddy, she said breathlessly, there is a black car down by the road. Ethan turned toward the window. Far beyond the fence line, half hidden between snow-covered pines, a dark SUV sat motionless near the entrance path. Claire went completely still. The color quietly left her face. Claire did not blink. She did not move toward the window. She simply stood beside the stove with both hands wrapped around the coffee mug as if warmth alone could keep the past from walking through the snow. Ethan noticed it immediately. The still shoulders. The careful breathing. The quiet kind of fear that did not shout. Lily pressed closer to the glass. Maybe somebody is lost, she said hopefully. Ethan stepped beside her. The SUV sat nearly a quarter mile away near the old wooden gate at the bottom of the property. Engine off. Dark windows. Snow gathering along the roof. It had not been there 5 minutes ago. He looked back at Claire. You know who that is. It was not a question. Claire lowered her eyes. Possibly. Lily turned around. Friends. Claire forced a smile. Not exactly. The little girl seemed ready to ask more, but Daisy barked from the porch and pulled her attention away. She hurried outside in pink boots, leaving small tracks across the fresh snow. Ethan waited until the door shut. The cabin became quiet again. Firewood cracked softly inside the stove. Somewhere overhead, the old ceiling fan clicked once every rotation. Claire finally spoke. I should leave. Ethan leaned against the counter. You were running. Her eyes lifted slowly. You noticed. People do not drive mountain roads during a winter storm without a reason. She looked toward the window where Lily laughed outside with Daisy. The sound floated back through the cold air like something fragile. Yesterday was supposed to be my engagement announcement. Ethan said nothing. Claire continued. Investors. Press. Cameras. Perfect smiles. Her voice carried no pride. Only exhaustion. I left before I walked onto the stage. Ethan studied her face. The woman in his kitchen looked nothing like someone escaping luxury. She looked like someone escaping loneliness. Why? He asked quietly. Claire smiled without happiness. Because everyone loved what I built. She paused. Nobody asked if I was happy inside it. Snow drifted from the roof outside. Lily knelt to make tiny shapes beside Daisy. Ethan watched his daughter laugh again, and something inside him softened. He had forgotten how loud joy sounded. Claire followed his eyes. She misses her mother every minute, she whispered. Ethan nodded once. Me too. Silence settled. Between them. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Claire turned slightly toward him. Last night when she fell asleep beside me, she held my hand. Her voice dropped. Like she was afraid I would disappear. Ethan swallowed. He knew that fear. Lily carried it everywhere. The fear that love always left. Suddenly a phone vibrated from somewhere beneath the folded coat hanging by the fireplace. Claire went pale. Ethan looked toward it. The sound came again. Sharp. Persistent. Claire crossed the room slowly and reached into the pocket. The screen lit her face. One name filled the display. David Whitmore. The call ended. Another came immediately. Then another. Ethan caught the change in her expression. Not fear now. Weariness. Lily burst back inside with red cheeks and snow in her hair. Daddy, she said breathlessly. The people from the black car are walking up the road. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. When she opened them again, the quiet woman in his flannel shirt was gone. In her place stood someone composed. Controlled. The kind of person used to being watched. Ethan, she said softly, there is something you need to know about me before they reach this house. The room seemed smaller after those words. Ethan stood beside the counter. Lily held Daisy's collar with both hands. Outside the kitchen windows, the winter sky had turned pale silver, and two figures in dark coats moved slowly through the snow toward the cabin. Claire placed the phone face down on the table. My full name is Claire Whitmore. Ethan said nothing. She continued anyway. Whitmore Living. Whitmore Design. Whitmore Hospitality. Her voice remained calm, but softer now. They are all mine. Lily blinked. Like all of them? Claire gave a small smile. Some of them. Ethan finally spoke. You own the company that remodeled the children's wing at Pine Ridge Hospital. Claire looked surprised. You know that project? He nodded once. My wife spent her last months there. The words hung quietly in the air. Claire lowered her eyes. I am sorry. Ethan looked toward the window. They built a music room. His voice became distant. Lily used to sit there with her mom. Claire pressed her fingers together. Something changed in her expression. Respect. Maybe sorrow. Outside, footsteps crunched closer through the snow. Lily moved beside Claire without thinking. The little girl slipped her hand into hers. Neither of them seemed to notice at first. Then Claire looked down. Her breath caught slightly. Ethan noticed that too. He had seen Lily avoid touch for almost 2 years. Yet now she stood there as if it were natural. A knock came at the front door. Once. Gentle. No urgency. Claire closed her eyes for a moment. I should go. Lily immediately tightened her grip. No, the answer came too fast. Too small. Too honest. Claire knelt in front of her. Sweetheart, you promised pancakes for lunch. Claire smiled sadly. That is not really a promise. It is to me. Silence followed. Ethan looked away toward the fire. The logs shifted with a soft crack. The cabin smelled of pine smoke and cinnamon. Home. It had always been simple, small, quiet. Yet somehow this woman from another world had stepped inside and changed the sound of it in less than a day. Another knock came. Ethan walked to the door. When he opened it, 2 people stood outside. One man around 50 in a charcoal coat. One woman carrying a leather folder. Snow dusted their shoulders. The older man removed his gloves immediately. Mr. Brooks, he said politely. My name is Henry Collins. I work for Miss Whitmore. Ethan glanced back. Claire stood motionless near the table. Henry continued. We have been searching all night. No accusation. No anger. Just relief. The woman beside him stepped forward slightly. The board is waiting. News outlets are asking questions. There is a helicopter at Ridgefield Landing. Lily looked up at Claire. You have a helicopter? Claire almost laughed. Unfortunately. Lily frowned seriously. That sounds lonely. Nobody spoke. Even Henry looked down. Claire stared at the little girl as though she had just heard the truth for the first time in years. Lily stepped closer and held out the paper snowflake she had made that morning. You can take this, she whispered. So you do not forget the cabin. Claire accepted it with both hands. Her eyes shimmered. Outside, the wind moved through the pines again. Inside the kitchen, the richest woman Ethan had ever met stood wearing his old flannel shirt and holding a child's paper snowflake, like it was worth more than everything waiting beyond the trees. Claire still held the paper snowflake when Henry quietly stepped back toward the doorway. The woman beside him lowered her folder and looked anywhere except at Lily. The cabin had changed something in the air. Even strangers could feel it. Ethan moved toward the stove and added another piece of firewood. Flames climbed slowly, filling the room with soft orange light. Winter pressed against the windows, but inside everything felt suspended between leaving and staying. Claire looked at Lily. I should go with them. Lily shook her head immediately. You said should. Her voice was small but firm. You did not say want. Ethan looked over. Claire froze. The little girl continued before anyone could stop her. Mom used to do that too. Silence settled like snow. Lily stared at the floor. When she was scared, she said should instead of want. Ethan felt the words land somewhere deep inside him. Claire slowly knelt again until she was eye level with her. Sweetheart, she whispered. There are people waiting for me. Lily nodded. Daddy has people too. Claire blinked. Lily pointed toward the framed photographs on the shelf. One showed Ethan and his wife at the county fair years ago. Another showed Lily on her first fishing trip. Mom still waits here, she said softly. Daddy waits too. He just does not know it. Ethan looked away toward the window. The snow outside had begun falling again. Slow flakes drifted across the fence line and settled on the old swing his wife once painted blue. Claire stood quietly. Her fingers brushed the paper snowflake. Henry, she said without turning around. Tell them I need one more day. The room went still. Henry looked genuinely shocked. Miss Whitmore, the board meeting has already been delayed. Then delay it again. The woman with the folder spoke carefully. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Claire smiled faintly. For the first time in 10 years, I am not interested in a schedule. Henry lowered his head. Understood. They stepped back outside. The front door closed gently. No drama. No arguments. Just silence. Lily smiled so fast it almost hurt to watch. She ran to the kitchen table and pulled out crayons from a wooden drawer. Good, she announced. Now we can make lunch pancakes. Claire laughed before she could stop herself. Real laughter this time. Warm. Unplanned. Ethan looked up. For a second she forgot who she was supposed to be. Not a CEO. Not an heiress. Just a woman standing in his cabin, wearing his flannel shirt with sunlight across her face. Claire caught him looking and immediately glanced away. I should probably change. Ethan shook his head before thinking. It is fine. The answer came too quickly. Both of them noticed. Lily definitely noticed. She grinned and pretended to color harder. Claire moved toward the hallway. As she passed the bookshelf, her hand brushed a small cedar box tucked beside old photo albums. The lid shifted open slightly. Inside rested letters tied with blue ribbon and a folded note on top written in delicate handwriting. Claire hesitated. Ethan saw it immediately. His expression softened. That was hers, he said quietly. Claire stepped back at once. I am sorry. Ethan walked over and lifted the note. The paper looked worn from being opened too many times. He stared at it for a moment. Then something unexpected happened. He handed it to Claire. She looked up in surprise. Ethan gave a tired smile filled with dignity and old grief. I think maybe, he said softly, you were supposed to read it. Claire accepted the note as though it might disappear if she held it too tightly. The paper was soft at the edges, folded and unfolded so many times it carried the shape of memory itself. Lily sat at the kitchen table coloring stars onto paper plates while Daisy slept beneath the window. Snow drifted outside in quiet waves. Ethan returned to the stove and stirred the pancake batter without looking up. Claire opened the note carefully. The handwriting curved gently across the page. If you are reading this, then Ethan trusted you enough to hand you something he could never throw away. That alone means more than you know. Claire swallowed. The room faded around her. She continued silently. He will pretend he is fine. He always does. He will carry grief like it is his job. He will choose everyone else first. If Lily ever laughs again after I am gone, please do not let him run from it. Claire lowered the page. Her eyes shimmered. Ethan kept facing the stove. The scent of vanilla and warm butter filled the kitchen. She wrote that 6 months before we lost her, he said quietly. Claire looked at him. You read it often? Ethan smiled without turning. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every day. Lily stopped speaking. Silence settled softly between them. Lily looked up from her coloring. Daddy. Yes, sweetheart. She held up a drawing. 3 people stood beneath a pine tree. One wore a flannel shirt. One had long blonde hair. The smallest figure held both their hands. Ethan froze. Claire forgot to breathe. Lily tilted her head innocently. Do not worry. I made the face this time. Ethan sat down slowly. The room felt too still. Too full. Claire folded the letter and pressed it gently to her chest. Lily, she whispered. That is beautiful. The little girl smiled. It is our cabin picture. Claire almost corrected her. Almost said it was not hers. But the words would not come. Because for the first time in years, she had slept without checking emails. For the first time in longer than she wanted to admit, someone had handed her coffee without expecting anything back. Home was not supposed to feel like this. Ethan stood and reached for plates. His hand brushed hers by accident. Both pulled back immediately. Lily looked between them with the seriousness only children possess. You too act weird. Claire laughed. Ethan nearly dropped a plate. Before anyone could answer, Claire's phone lit again across the table. This time it was not Henry. The name read David. The screen filled with missed calls. 31. Ethan looked away respectfully. Claire stared for several seconds before turning the phone face down. Lily frowned. That person makes you sad. Claire blinked. What? Your eyes change. The cabin became quiet again. Claire sat slowly beside Lily. Sometimes grown-ups stay in places they should leave, she said softly. Lily nodded as if she understood more than she should. Mom said love is where you breathe better. Ethan stopped moving. Claire looked up. Their eyes met across the kitchen. Outside, wind carried snow through the pines. Inside, something invisible shifted. Not romance. Not yet. Something gentler. Trust. Grace. The kind that arrived quietly. Then Claire noticed another envelope inside the cedar box beneath the blue ribbons. This one had Ethan's name on it. Unopened. She looked at him carefully. You never read this one. Ethan went still. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. No. Claire touched the envelope lightly. Why? Ethan stared into the fire. Because I was afraid it might tell me to let go. Ethan remained by the stove long after the words left him. The fire had settled into glowing embers, and the snow outside had slowed to soft drifting flakes. Claire still held the unopened envelope. Lily had fallen quiet again, coloring tiny pine trees around the picture she made earlier. The cabin felt suspended between past and future. Claire looked down at the envelope. The paper had yellowed slightly with time. His name sat across the front in careful blue ink. Ethan Brooks. No hearts. No decorations. Just handwriting full of dignity. You kept it all these years, Claire said softly. Ethan nodded once. Top shelf. Back corner. Could not throw it away. Could not open it either. He gave a tired smile. That too. Lily looked up. Maybe Mom put a treasure map inside. Ethan laughed quietly. The sound surprised all three of them. Even him. Claire watched it happen. Watched how quickly it disappeared again. Like joy still needed permission in this house. She walked over and gently held out the envelope. I think she trusted you more than your fear. Ethan looked at it, but did not take it. What if it says move on? Claire's voice became softer. Then maybe she loved you enough to want that. Silence. Wind brushed against the windows. Somewhere outside a branch dropped snow with a muffled thump. Ethan finally reached for the envelope. His fingers trembled slightly. Lily slid from her chair and sat beside him without a word. Claire stayed standing near the table, giving him space he had not realized he needed. Ethan opened the seal carefully. Inside was one folded page. He unfolded it slowly. The room became very still. If you were reading this, then you waited longer than I expected. Ethan smiled through wet eyes immediately. The letter continued. You stubborn man. Lily grinned. That sounds like Mom. Ethan nodded without looking up. You will carry me longer than you should. You will call it loyalty. Others will call it strength. I will call it what it is. Love. But love is not meant to become a locked room. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. Claire lowered her eyes. If Lily ever finds someone who makes her laugh again, do not be brave. Be open. If someone walks into our home and brings light back, do not honor me by closing the door. Honor me by opening it. The fire crackled softly. Ethan reached the last line. And if she happens to wear your flannel shirt while doing it, try not to be impossible. Lily gasped. Claire covered her mouth. Ethan stared at the page in complete silence. Then for the first time since his wife passed, he laughed and cried at the same time. Quietly. Honestly. Lily wrapped both arms around him. Claire looked away toward the window, giving him dignity even inside grief. After a minute, Ethan folded the letter and stood. His eyes found Claire across the room. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Then her phone rang again. This time she answered. Claire, Henry said through the speaker, voice careful. The board approved the emergency delay. She closed her eyes briefly. Thank you. Henry hesitated. There is one more thing. Claire looked toward the snow outside. What is it? A pause came. David Whitmore arrived at headquarters this morning. The cabin went still. Henry continued quietly. He announced to the press that the engagement remains active. Claire's face lost all color. Lily looked confused. Ethan stepped forward without thinking. Claire lowered the phone slowly. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I never said yes. The words lingered in the cabin long after Claire spoke them. I never said yes. Ethan stood beside the table with the letter still in his hand. Lily looked between them, confused but listening with the quiet attention children save for important moments. Outside, snow continued falling over the pine trees, and the old swing moved gently in the wind. Claire set the phone down. Her shoulders seemed smaller now, as if the weight she carried finally had a name. Ethan spoke first. Then why does everyone think you did? Claire gave a tired smile. Because silence is convenient when money is involved. She walked toward the window and stared at the white field beyond the fence. David and I grew up in the same world. Same schools. Same charity galas. Same expectations. Her fingers rested lightly against the glass. People assumed our lives belonged together long before we met. Lily frowned. That sounds unfair. Claire looked down at her. Sometimes it was easier not to argue. Ethan folded the letter carefully and placed it back inside the cedar box. And now, Claire took a slow breath. Now I am tired of living a life designed by committee. Silence settled again. The fire crackled softly. Daisy shifted in her sleep. Somewhere in the kitchen, the old clock ticked toward noon. Lily suddenly stood and walked to Claire. She held up the drawing from earlier. Then pick this one. Claire blinked. What? Lily pointed at the picture. 3 people. 1 cabin. 1 pine tree. You said people wanted to choose for you. Her voice was small but steady. So choose your own picture. Claire stared at the page as though it were something sacred. Ethan watched her carefully. There was no CEO in that moment. No headlines. No billion-dollar boardrooms. Just a woman holding a child's drawing with tears she did not want anyone to see. Her phone rang again. She silenced it immediately. Then it rang a second time. And a third. Ethan stepped closer. You do not have to answer. Claire looked at him. I always answer. Maybe that is the problem. The words came gently. No judgment. Only truth. Claire lowered the phone slowly. For the first time in years, she pressed the power button and turned it off completely. The cabin became impossibly quiet. Lily smiled like she had just witnessed magic. Claire laughed softly through tears. That felt terrifying. Ethan almost smiled. Good things usually do. Afternoon light drifted through the windows. The snow had eased into soft glitter under the winter sun. Lily pulled Claire toward the table again. Lunch pancakes now. Important meeting. Claire looked down. More important than a board meeting? Lily nodded with complete seriousness. Way more. Ethan turned back toward the stove. Claire moved beside him without thinking. Their shoulders nearly touched. He reached for the batter bowl. She reached at the same time. Fingers brushed again. Both paused. Neither moved away immediately. The kitchen felt suddenly smaller. Warmer. Lily grinned into her crayons. Claire quietly stepped back first. Her heartbeat betrayed her anyway. Ethan pretended not to notice. Outside, a dark helicopter appeared far beyond the trees, distant and waiting near the valley landing strip. Claire saw it through the window. The world she left had not gone anywhere. It was still there, patient, powerful, expecting her return. But when she looked back into the cabin, she saw Ethan at the stove, Lily laughing over crooked stars, Daisy asleep by the fire, and the old red flannel still wrapped around her shoulders. For the first time in her life, leaving felt harder than staying. Late afternoon settled softly over Pine Hollow. The snow had stopped. Sunlight rested across the white fields like gold brushed over quiet places. Inside the cabin, the last pancakes sat untouched on the table because nobody seemed ready for the moment that was coming. Claire stood near the front window with Ethan's flannel still around her shoulders. Down in the valley, the helicopter waited. Far beyond it was the world that knew her name. Behind her was the world that had learned her heart. Lily sat on the rug beside Daisy, finishing one last drawing. Ethan stacked plates in silence. The old rhythm of ordinary life moved gently around them, and somehow that made goodbye feel heavier. Claire finally turned. I have to go. The words came quietly. Lily stopped coloring. Ethan did not look up right away. He set the last plate down and nodded once. Dignity had always been his language. Claire walked toward him. Thank you for last night. Ethan smiled faintly. You already said that. Not for saving me on the road. Her eyes softened. For letting me be nobody for a day. Silence followed. The kind that held meaning instead of emptiness. Lily stood and crossed the room. She held out the finished picture. The pine tree was larger now. The cabin had smoke rising from the chimney. 3 people still stood together. This time the woman had a paper snowflake in her hand. Keep it, Lily whispered. Claire accepted it carefully. I will. Lily hesitated. Will you come back? Ethan looked down immediately. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she knelt. I do not know what tomorrow looks like yet. Her voice trembled slightly. But I know this place changed me. Lily nodded like that was enough. A car engine sounded outside. Henry had returned. Time had arrived. Claire stood slowly. She slipped off the red flannel and folded it with surprising care. Then she stopped. Looked at it. Looked at Ethan. Actually, she said softly, I think I need to borrow this a little longer. Ethan almost laughed. Fair trade. For what? He glanced at the paper snowflake in her hand. That. Claire smiled through tears. She moved toward the door. 1 step. 2. Then she stopped again. Turned back. The cabin had gone quiet. Even the clock seemed to pause. Claire looked at Ethan. There is something I never said. He waited. Her fingers tightened around the drawing. I did not stay because I felt sorry for you. Ethan remained still. Claire took a breath. I stayed because your daughter laughed. Her eyes shimmered. And because when I sat at your table this morning. She looked around the little cabin one last time. The stove. The pine shelves. The cedar box. The life built from loss and grace. For the first time in years, she whispered, I wanted to belong somewhere. Nobody moved. Lily slowly walked forward and wrapped her arms around Claire. The paper snowflake crinkled softly between them. Ethan looked away toward the window because some moments deserved privacy even when they broke your heart. Outside, winter light covered the valley. Inside, silence fell across the room. Not empty silence. Not grief. The kind that arrives when truth finally finds a home.